Vlog! Welcome back to the Red Ones Go Faster. I'm Old Big Mek, and in today's video, we're talking about how to transport your boys. Let's get into it. Alright, first things first, the most common way I think most people bring their armies around, at least when they're getting started, is of course in the box they come in. This is actually not a half bad idea for a couple of reasons. One, you can see it's actually pretty big. Here is an entire army here from one of my best grots that he's got in his Leviathan box, and you can see it even holds large vehicles, your flight stands, dice, very awkward shaped things like the Outriders. These are actually really hard to get into cases because you've got the pieces that jut out and just the general size of them. So the nice thing about a big box like this is it carries all of those awkward things, all of those tall figures and stuff, without actually having any problems. The downside, of course, is everything kind of moves around. You got to be really, really careful with it. The army can get damaged, and well, frankly, when you put it all together, it looks like another box of unpainted minis. So you got to be careful when you get into a game store or something like that. Make sure somebody doesn't actually accidentally pick this up and decide that they're going to try to buy it, when in reality it's holding your army. So that is one option. Next, of course, is something like the army transport. There's a number of different varieties of these out here, different vendors and stuff, but the long and the short of it is you have a big soft bag here, all sorts of various zippers and flaps and compartments, but most importantly, the inside is full of this, which is foam to hold your individual figures. Now, this helps protect the figures, especially with something like these OG Armageddon Steel Legions that are made out of metal. They rattle around, but they're not going to break, they're not going to chip smacking into each other. The hard part with this, of course, is you either get pre-made foam like this and have it not necessarily hold them the tightest, or you can get foam like this, where you can kind of cut it out and make your own shapes. They also have different thicknesses as far as this way goes, which is important because you've got things like your heavy weapons team here. If it's taller, you're going to need a thicker foam. The downside with these is if you ever change units, you decide to buy a new unit or add to something or take a unit out of your army, it makes the trays that they were in useless, as you can see with these that are empty. And so you end up buying trays a lot in order to keep your transport workable. The other problem I have with these is a lot of times, actually, depending on how tight the foam is, you can actually damage your figures, especially plastic ones, getting them in and out of the foam. So they're not the best option, but they certainly are an option. All right, next. All right, and that brings me to actually my preferred method, which is box and bag. So this is something, this is the shield bag. Again, lots of different brands out there, lots of options. Don't necessarily have to use this one. But basically, you find a soft shell bag that is a nice square shape like this. Something that you can stack inside. And what you're stacking inside are actually good old run-of-the-mill Plano tackle boxes. Now, I really like these because you can get all sorts of different shapes and sizes inside, and then they have the little dividers in them so that you can set them up for your units. And then if your unit changes, you can move the dividers, right? They just pop right out, and then you pop them in somewhere different. And of course, they usually come with a whole bunch of them, way more than you would need for minis, because again, these are made for fishing, not necessarily Warhammer, but they're really useful. The other thing is, you can basically keep all of these at home on a shelf or something and just have your one bag, and when you go and kind of muster your army to go play, you can grab just the cases you need, throw them in the bag, and away you go, which again is how I do it. It's also great because Plano makes these deeper ones that are wide open. So you can see this particular one here actually holds quite a bit of vehicles in it. I've got 3 trucks and a shock jump dragsta and some killicans and a beast boss, and they all fit standing up, and the lid closes and nothing gets hurt. So this is actually a really great option for, let's face it, some pretty bizarrely shaped Warhammer things that could be quite wide, quite tall, quite fragile, really, let's be honest. And things like the walkers. I mean, oh my gosh, these are so hard to deal with with foam or boxes. In a box, they rattle around and all the parts break off. In foam, you squish them in and all the parts break off. In something like this, you can kind of pack them in there nicely. They do move around a little bit, but the breakage is much reduced. And then again, you take this, you put it in the bag, zip the bag up, and away you go off to the game store with everything you need in here. This is my preferred choice. All right, next. All right, and next is like an art bin. So the Plano bins can be kind of hard to come by depending on where you live, or you know, if you're trying to get something else that's more of a one-piece, smaller army. Maybe you've got a kill team or a smaller Age of Sigmar army. These art bins are actually pretty nice. They're very similar to the Plano as far as you can actually, you know, move the pieces around inside to adjust for your army. But you know, they are going to be just your one standard depth depending on what you want. But again, especially for a more infantry-based force, like again this Chaos force for my Garrote, you could see that, you know, it really works well for anything like that. You can the taller figures you can put in sideways, and then this particular one has this pull-out tray on top that's actually nice if you do have any larger flatter items that can go in there. But all of your standard infantry fit in the bottom just fine. It makes it a nice option. And then again, your whole army is in one case and ready to go. And these are not terribly expensive or hard to find. All right, next. All right, next are toolboxes. So these are Home Depot versions, but again, there's a bunch of different ones out there. They're very essentially the same. Harbor Freight's got a really good option on them. Basically, they are stackable toolboxes that are designed to lock into one another. And so you can unlock them like that, and then you have your toolbox, and inside the toolbox there are these compartments that you can move around and change for your particular armies. Now, again, these are nice that you've got different options available as far as what size you need for each squad. It's going to keep the squads pretty safe. And then, again, you can have multiple squads, multiple armies, and lock them together like that, and bring them with you and have everything you need. They're also especially useful, we have found, for painting. So all of the Games Workshop paints actually go in quite nicely, things like that. So if you were wanting to make a travel paint set, something like this could be a good option. Also, your playing gear. You know, you could throw your ruler in, your dice, your markers, those kind of things. They make a great option for that. And again, there are multiple options available. Harbor Freight's version of this, you can actually get a rolling one, like a master one, to put all of these in and roll it around like airport luggage, which could be quite nice. So that's another option. All right, next. Oh, big Mamba Jamba time. Ooh, so big we actually got to zoom out. Look at that monster. This right here is the Plano 732. This might be one of the single most popular tackle boxes to be used by the gaming community. I know dozens of people that actually use these for a number of reasons that we're going to go over. First of all, you can see the front here actually holds the same pull-out Planos that we were just talking about, which makes it nice for your infantry squads, and you get 3 of them in there. It then has these little side cubbies that are tall and skinny. These are great for like Wraith Knights, Death Dreads, Dreadnoughts, anything that is a walker that is a taller size can go in there. They also have, up here in top, a deeper section. I'll pick this thing up here so you guys can actually see. Check that out. So you've got this kind of slanted section here. So skinnier stuff up front, deeper stuff in the back. I can put Garrote tanks in the back, no problem. Killicans went in there. And so you've got this whole extra deep area here. There's also these side pieces here that open up again for taller characters. So again, especially your infantry-based armies, this is one of the best options. And again, it's an all-in-one buy. You get just the 732, it comes with all the things inside of it, and you've got a nice singular carrying case to bring your whole army with you. So yeah, super good option here. Next. All right, and that moves us to this Plano case right here, which is actually one of my personal favorites. So This particular case is a little different. It has a top section here that you open up. And you can see it's got room for things like the Outriders without any problems, because it's actually fairly height and fairly deep in this section. And you can put some of your larger figures again sideways in there. But whole squads can stand up even if they have vertical pieces to them. They fit pretty well up here. And so that's your top half of the case. Then it splits in half, and there's a bottom half of the case. Now, you do have to be a little careful with lifting the lid and whatnot, but here in the bottom, as you can see, there are a number of squads. The amount that this thing can hold is actually super impressive. I really like this style case for Space Marines and Astra Militarum or Imperial Guard. Or any other army setup like that, Sisters of Battle, for example, where you have lots of infantry that can go on the bottom with all your different squads, and then your couple of vehicles and tanks are very boxy and square and kind of low down. Now, you do have to take the turret off of a Lehman Russ to get it in top. Same thing with a Chimera, but you pop the turret off and they fit right in. You can actually get 4 of them up here as long as they don't have sponsons. Same thing with Rhinos, you can get 4 of them up there. So this is a really great option for those infantry heavy armies that just have a couple of vehicles, and those vehicles are squat and boxy instead of, you know, walkers. So yeah, this is one of my favorite Plano cases. I've got a couple of these for various armies. All right, next. All right, and lastly, we come to the best option there is out there, especially for you orc players, all right? Orcs obviously come in all sorts of shapes and sizes with lots of spiky bits, things like that that hang off. And, well, the best way to transport your boys is in a good old-fashioned bucket. That's right, a bucket. So you can take your boys and just, at the end of your game, and bring them with you. That's right. That's how you do it, my friend. Good old bucket of boys. All right, and that's all your different transportation options when it comes to your armies. So, you know, if you're into really high-end painted armies, put them in foam. If you're into packing all your squads in to make sure you can make to the tournament, buy a Plano. If you're into boys, grab yourself a bucket. I think they're free sometimes, too, which makes them even better for the orc player. So there are links down in the description below and pinned on the top comment on where to get most, if not all, of these items or very close facsimiles of. Again, you can go shop local and stuff like that as well, but it doesn't cost you anything extra to shop it through the links, and it definitely helps the channel out so that I can upgrade my bucket for my boys here, and they don't have to ride around in the bucket anymore. Or maybe it's just buy more buckets. I'm not real sure which one it is. Anyways, until next time, I'm Old Big Mek. This is the Red Ones Go Faster. Grab yourself a bucket of boys and get out there and wah!